G'day everyone, it's SDS SuperCoach providing SuperCoach content for you. We're here, we're going to talk about the 600 plus K players. We're going to rank them in order from worst to best on what to start. As most of us super coaches, we want to be looking at locking in a few of the 600K guys that we feel comfortable with having for most of the season as value, and as the game of super coach is ever evolving and we're leaning more towards value than more than ever. When we still need those guys at 600 plus K that we can rely upon in our sides. And I'm going to discuss them. Now, I'm going to be honest, I reckon this is the first year in a fair while that I'm actually not a massive fan of a lot of these 600K players where I'm just really struggling to fit. I'd say in my opinion, there's about five that I'm considering. One I'm very confident in, and the other four, if enough dominoes fall, then I can lean back on them. So let's get into it, shall we? Make sure if you haven't already, you like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. Really do appreciate it. Twitter, Stephen D.W. Smith, and also on TikTok at SDS_SuperCoach, where I post shorter versions of my YouTube videos. Let's discuss. So I think 15 is actually pretty easy here, Rowan Marshall for me, because there's no guarantee that he's actually going to play. And for round one, and actually I'd be surprised if he played round one. With his injury, he's meant to be out for 5 to 8 weeks. That's the range that St Kilda are giving him. This is 7 or 8 weeks, in my opinion. So, and then but even before the injury, the news that Harry Boyd could potentially take the starting ruck role, which moves Marshall into the forward line, should have been enough alarm bells. But now he might not even play. He's the only 600K player that might not even play round one. So I would highly recommend you cross him off if you got him on your side. Was he in 6%? That's 6%. I really do recommend that you look elsewhere. So big note for Rowan Marshall. At 14, we got Adam Treloar, who's at the risk of regression, and he is currently dealing with a calf injury, and he's on a very modified program so far in preseason. So, I mean, even before the calf injury, I really had my concerns about Treloar. I actually did this list a couple of weeks ago, and Treloar was actually 15, but now with Marshall potentially not even playing, I've put Treloar up to 14, but it still doesn't mean that I think people should be starting him. I think this is a very Tom Liberatore 2024 potential where he's still perfectly fine as a midfielder, but he could drop 10 points and average 105, 106. I reckon there's that risk. There's some older players that can have an amazing season 1 year in their 30s, but then fall off a cliff massively. Like there's a couple of I know it's a different position, but like Tex Walker, for example, in 2023 was amazing, dropped off massively the next year. So I would strongly suggest that you probably look elsewhere for Adam Treloar, as well as the additions of Matt Kennedy, potentially Riley Sanders coming in as well could limit his touches as they look to try to get him back to full fitness. And I guess that's always been his problem is he's always been injury prone, but last year he was mostly healthy. So let's just keep that in mind that 1 year of being healthy does not mean that that's the case for the rest of his career. 13th, we got Lockie Neal. Now, similar but not with Adam Treloar. Obviously, Neal is one of the Supercoach midfield goats, so that is the main difference here. Where he's just been an absolute professional. I'm not saying Treloar isn't professional, but Lockie Neal, we've known for years that he is just an absolute superstar in that midfield for our Supercoach sides, as we can sort of see here. So Lockie Neal actually tore his plantar fasciitis. How do you pronounce it? Plantar fascia. I don't know. And he does not require foot surgery, which is a good result. But and I actually haven't heard anything about him in preseason, so I assume no hiccups or anything. So that is a good sign. I mean, it's tough with these rounds zero playing teams where it's tough to say yes or no when we literally get an answer in the first game whether we're actually going to pick him or not. I still wouldn't start him if he dropped 140, with Will Ashcroft potentially taking his game to another new level, that sort of thing. So I think Lockie Neal, I don't think it's a massive step back. What he averaged last year, 119. I still think there's a bit of caution where we don't need to pay 646K for a 31, 32-year-old midfielder. Lockie Neal's an absolute champion. I love him, but I would probably be looking elsewhere because the risk with the injury could certainly hamper his price, and where we could pick him up maybe at midway through the season if he's looking good. So yeah, I just think we can get him at a very much more discounted price, and I just don't think we need to bother with Lockie Neal to start our teams with. Number 12, we've got Isaac Heaney from the Swans. So once again, another round zero player. We find out what he's we find out, if he drops 150, 160 on the Hawks round zero, probably a lot of us might pick him. But I think we saw his form in the second half of the season where just he started out really strong. Then after this suspension, was it the St Kilda game? I reckon it was. We just saw him fall off a cliff massively. Massively. Yeah, so that doesn't encourage me that he can run out a full season. Now, I still think there's a world where he's a top eight midfielder, of course. I mean, he was unbelievable last season, one of the best individual seasons I've seen out of a player, just with his damage and impact for the Swans, and he was a main contributor for their grand final appearance. But yeah, I just think there's probably more reliable midfielders if you wanted to pay 600 plus for them. Number 11, I've got Josh Dunkley, who is the cheapest 600K player. What's my concern? He's at a good age. Could he impact a bit more with maybe a potential Lockie Neal regression? I know he kept saying this with Lockie Neal every season that he might regress, but once again, the round zero bye affects him. They've actually Heaney, Neal, and Dunkley all have the same bye, so take that for what you will. But I think it'll actually be Will Ashcroft that takes the jump. I think Josh Dunkley is a star in his own way, where I think he's just more of like a star role player. That sounds really harsh. Like we know how good he is, but he does seem to play that more defensive midfielder role, which caps his ceiling. So look, 600K is fine, but for Josh Dunkley, but just don't think there's any upside to the pick where would have interested me a lot more compared to his current price tag. Number 10, we're going to go with Sam Flanders. Again, round zero bye, but actually the round two bye. Sorry, not round zero bye, round two bye. Plays in round zero though. He won't, I'd be, unless John Noble gets injured as well, along with Dan Rioli. He's not going to play in defence, so I think we can rule that out as an option because he was the main distributor at some point last season, towards the early mid part of the season, and then the last month sort of played half forward. But now, I mean, it's down to midfield or forward. Part of me thinks he could play half forward. And if that's the case, so he can't get forward DPP because he's a defensive midfielder, but or could he play in the midfielder role? Could maybe Tuke Miller play more team friendly role where he moves out? But I think there's a chance because we saw Dimmer Hardwick last season move him around four times, basically into different roles, and I don't like that much role change. As good as he was last year, I'm not a fan of it. We need some security in what he's going to do, and where he's going to play week in, week out. So I personally, I mean, if we really want Sam Flanders, we get to see him in round zero and round one, and then he will have the bye. Then we see the break even on whether his price will go up or down. So we'll see if it's an amazing role. My guess will be no. So I would keep that in mind. I would probably not be looking at Sam Flanders. Number 9 is Nick Dacos. Sorry. Yep, there we go. Nick Dacos here. So I love Nick Dacos, but that plantar fascia, similar, same injury to Lockie Neal. I don't. Nick Dacos didn't actually tear it though. He's just dealing with the problem, but it's still an interrupted preseason. So just keep that in mind. Again, playing in round zero. So again, that early buy is going to hit. Same buys, Neil, Dunkley, Heaney. So um, I just don't think I can trust a player if he's going to be dealing with that for most of the season because it is one of those injuries that can just linger around. So yeah, I don't. Nick Dacos is the ultimate professional, but that just keeps you in the back. That's just in the back of my mind there with Nick Dacos. So I don't think I'll be picking him regardless of what he scores in round zero. I just think, yeah, just I just if I'm gonna be paying 600 plus K on a bloke, I'm probably gonna need them to have a full preseason. And I know he's said all the good things now that he's fine, he's dealing with it, he should be good to go for round zero, which I'm sure he will be. He should be playing round zero, but need to keep seeing how he goes in the preseason games with that potential injury. So we'll see. I'm not going to be picking him. Number 8 is Max Gorn. The price tag's very hard for me, but what makes him so unique as an option is he can single-handedly kill non-owners in a big round score, and which is pretty important for Supercoach. So he could just go absolutely bonkers. Was he 14%? He did have that internal injury, which I'm not a fan of for 33, 34 years old. Max Scorn to be getting when it's looks like he'll be solo ruck again. They're kind of running him into the ground, but he's so good at the role where I can't blame them for wanting him to stick with this solo ruck role. But gee, doesn't fill me with great confidence. He had some niggles throughout the season. So I'm personally not going to be going there. So I've put him down at 8. Hit the halfway mark. So we got Luke Ryan here at number 7. And I'm still not, he again, having a full preseason, looks fit, but I do think the game plan changed for Fremantle and looked more into Jordan Clark than it did Luke Ryan. So I wonder if they'll be sticking with that. I'm pretty sure they will. I know Justin Longmuir had a crack at Luke Ryan and a couple of the defenders for stat padding. I think Jordan Clark's game suits more to the modern game with the way Fremantle want to play over Luke Ryan. So wouldn't surprise me if Luke Ryan was a little bit more accountable next season and still probably a top 6 defender, but we could probably get him for 50K cheaper at some point during the year. All right, now we head into Zach Merritt for the Bombers, who has been trialing a little bit off halfback to avoid some tagging problems that he did. He would literally cop attention every single week, and the opposition were just saying, everyone else try to beat us. We'll stop Zach Merritt. So they're trialing him a little bit in defence, but I still think on most occasions he will be playing midfield. Another side playing that round zero, but he's got the round 4 bye, which is a bit different and probably the best bye of the early rounds. Essendon share that with Hawthorn, but we know he's very consistent, but we know every season that he can get towards that 550K, 540K region, which is when coaches usually swoop for him because he usually rewards after a slump of form to regather his play. So to regather his form and uplift Essendon. So yeah, I've got Zach Merritt there at 6. I don't see a problem with it. I think we're now starting to head to the range where I'm not fussed if you want to pick these blokes. Probably top 6 is where I look at guys that I do like at 600K plus if you want to pay up that money. Number 5, we've got Caleb Sarong. Now, I've currently got Hayden Young in my team, but I'm happy to pivot if Young doesn't look good in preseason. But Caleb Sarong, ultimate professional as well, as all these blokes are, as we know. But Sarong is ultra consistent, but it does seem to cop a fair bit of attention compared to a Brayshaw and a Young. Could that change? I don't know. I mean, early season, I feel like they'll go after Sarong because we saw last season's form with Sarong. He's just he's just an unbelievable player. Um, I think you're paying what you're getting. I do think it'll be a very similar outcome average wise with Caleb Sarong. So I'm happy to pivot to him if Hayden Young or Brayshaw doesn't meet the eye. But yeah, we'll have to see with Caleb Sarong at the end of the day. And Fremantle also have a really good buy. So that's up Luke Ryan in the rankings. That is up to Caleb Sarong in the rankings for sure. Didn't for Brian Marshall though, who shared the bye with Fremantle just because he might not play. So there you go. As we head into the top four, we got Zach Butters here from the Power. Um, I guess the risk here is could there be a lower average with Zach Butters for next season if Horn Francis does take the next level? That's a potential risk, but I guess also with me putting him at four compared to the top three is it's very rare for the top two midfielders to be in Supercoach to replicate that the next season. It's usually a different order. So that's why I have more faith in like a Bontempelli doing that compared to Zach Butters. So just something to keep in mind there. 648 is a lot of money. I think it's, was it the third most expensive player in the game? I think there is a point where we could get him at 590, 600K. So, but I had him early in my side, but I've given it a bit more thought. But again, I just don't see much of an issue if you wanted to pick him. I think you're probably likely going to be paying for what you're getting. And then at three, we got Bontempelli, who is my favorite midfielder. If you want to pay 600 plus K for a midfielder, all the signs and all the training reports I'm hearing are really good with Bontempelli. He's in the prime of his career, 28, 29 years old, where it isn't an age issue just yet. In a couple of years' time, it will be, but he's just a superstar. It's hard. He's the hardest midfielder in the competition to tag, just due to that height and speed and power. The risk would be the forward potential with Bevo, with Ugle Hagen missing for the first part of the season, it seems like. So, but he's just an absolute superstar. And 51% here's a hard non-holder, sorry, non-owner watch for Bulldogs games. So if I don't pick Bontempelli, I'm going to find it really hard to watch Bulldogs games. It's got North Melbourne straight up. North Melbourne don't really have anyone that can go with him at the end of the day. As we have a look at their fixture. Gold Coast, I mean, we know how much they leak points there. West Coast. Oh, wait, no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. My apologies. So, North Melbourne, Collingwood, two really good targets for Bontempelli as a captain. That's one of the main reasons you're paying 600 plus K for a player is for captaincy. So, you got North, you got Collingwood. Um, yeah, you got a really nice run of fixtures here early on. Do I think he can get below 600? I still think there's a chance he didn't. He was the only player that didn't go below 600K last season, Marcus Bontempelli. So you're paying for comfort. You know he's just going to put in a good shift. Very high chance he's going to be the highest scoring midfielder in the game. So I can. He's very tempting to go with. I know I said I wouldn't pay 650K play, 650K for plus for any player, but Bontempelli's bloody tempting. I just want to see the Pracky games. I know you don't take everything into consideration there, but with Ugle Hagen out, I actually wish the Bulldogs were one of the sides with around zero, so we can have a look at because I do think he'll spend stints in the forward line, Marcus Bontempelli, but we might see in the Pracky games. Oh, sorry, I should have put Tristan Sherry at 15 because he tore his ACL. My apologies. Just kidding, just kidding. Any of those reports were a load of crap. So don't worry about Tristan Sherry. He didn't tear his ACL. He is fine. There were just some reports on Facebook, but it wasn't reliable at all. So Tristan Sherry at number two, where if enough dominoes fall in the ruck line, you just go, hey, Tristan Sherry at a ripping age. And we just, I think what makes him so good is that he his game is just perfect for SuperCoach, where everything his game is suited best for SuperCoach. So I am I'm happy to fall back on Tristan Cherry if, as I said, enough dominoes fall in the ruck line. Like let's say Pitternet gets named ahead of along with DeConning, Sean Darcy misses round one, that type of thing. I don't think he'll. This might sound crazy, but it's very tough to do a double breakout, if that makes any sense, where I don't think he's adding an extra 5, 6 points to his total. I think that's just extremely rare to happen. If you break out, it's usually the same impact the following season. So I think this is the perfect example of if you're paying for Tristan Sherry, you're probably paying for the price tag. So I don't think there's upside to him, but he's just super reliable and his game suits Supercoach so much. Lastly, it's his teammate and number one, the bloke that I'll be picking in Supercoach, unless there's an injury. Harry Sheezel, 635, one of the only 600K plus players where there's actual upside to what he could do. So he could easily go 123 plus. Now, the thing with George Wardlaw being out, could that added a little bit more attention to Sheezel's game? I'm not too sure. Like, I think Sheezel, I know some people compare Sheezel and Dacos, but what helps Sheezel and Supercoach is he's rarely tagged. He might start getting tagged, but I expect I expect North to finally take that next step of winning 7, 6 games. So that might cause a little bit more attention, but not too much. Like Nick Dacos gets it every week, and I'm sure he'll get it in 2025 as well. So, yes, I'm a massive fan of Harry Sheezel. In my opinion, for me, he's the only lock at 600 plus K for me. So I am a massive fan, and his game translates to Supercoach so well. So there we go. That is the top 15. Just to remind anyone, I've gone Marshall last, 14 Trelaw, 13 Neil, 12 Heaney, 11 Josh Dunkley, 10 Flanders, 9 Dacos, 8 Gorn, 7 Ryan, 6 Merritt, 5 Sarong, 4 Butters, 3 Bontempelli, 2 Sherry, and 1 to Harry Sheezel. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.